Of all military parastatals, the police force is more charged with the responsibility of reducing crimes, protecting and ensuring the safety of individuals. Like the common slogan, the police is your friend. But if this is so, then what happens when the cops in uniform, who are supposed to protect you and secure life and properties, turn around and cause you even more pain and trauma, or worse, death? Well, this video is about to reveal the chilling and soul-shattering stories of bad cops who abused their authorities and were punished for it. Stay glued to your screens because these stories will send chills to your bones. Gerard Schaefer. Gerard was the kind of cop you'd gladly invite over for dinner as a show of appreciation after he'd saved you from some bad guys. But behind the disguise, he was a psychopath. In fact, he was one of the most sickening dirty cops ever in history. Want to hear his story? At just the age of 12, Gerard had already started experimenting bondage and sadomasochism, where he would fantasize inflicting pains on women while molesting and killing them. And this continued for a long time into his adulthood. He eventually landed a job as a school teacher, but was fired as a result of his misconduct and for trying to impose his own moral and political values on students. After losing his job, he saw joining the police as a better opportunity to exhibit his homicidal fantasies. In March 1972, Gerard was accepted into the small Wilton Manors Police Department, but little did they know that he was trouble and would eventually live out his darkest fantasies. It was on July 21st, 1972. While on patrol, Gerard picked up two hitchhikers aged 17 and 18, offering to give them a ride, except that he had other plans. Evil ones. Instead of taking them to their destination, he drove them to a secluded area, aimed a gun at them, tied them to a tree, and left them there to return later. Luckily, the girls escaped and reported him to a police station. Gerard Schaefer was arrested and sentenced to a year in county jail alongside a 3-year probation. He was released after serving his time, but a shocking and chilling revelation was about to be discovered. In September 1972, 2 teenage girls were declared missing, and investigations traced the suspect back to Gerard Schaefer with strong evidence which revealed him as the killer. In the following months, investigations into other missing persons linked Gerard as the killer to over 30 victims, with the majority being women. Gerard was tried and given a life sentence in October 1973, but not too long into his sentence, he was killed by a fellow inmate who slashed his throat and stabbed him in both eyes. Joseph Miedzianowski. Joseph Miedzianowski was the true definition of a drug lord hiding in the disguise of a police uniform. He was the kind of cop you'd never imagine could tell a lie, let alone run a long chain of drug and ammunition business. But behind the well-played character of a good cop was a man with many dark and unimaginable secrets. In fact, during his 22-year police career, Miedzianowski was well decorated with 59 citations for valor and arrests. He was also praised for his high number of drug and illegal weapon busts. However, there was more to him than just some pretty uniform. During his time serving as a police officer in the Chicago Police Department, he was deeply involved in revealing the identity of undercover police officers to gang members, protecting drug organizations, distributing large quantities of crack cocaine, and supplying gang members with ammunition. It was even believed that Miedzianowski successfully sold more guns and drugs than he ever cleared off the streets. But his dirty works were soon exposed. In April 2001, he was finally charged with racketeering and drug conspiracy criminal charges and sentenced to life in prison. America fondly remembers him as Chicago's most corrupt cop. Jon Burge. Imagine a sadist and a masochist person in a police uniform. That would be Jon Burge. Being a one-time Chicago police commander, Jon Burge was tagged America's most infamous torturer and his story is quite intriguing as it is disturbing. It all started in the fall of 1968 after he was sent to war. Something in him changed, and he became very interested in learning in torture techniques used on Viet Cong soldiers. Even more disturbingly, he was obsessed and had a strange satisfaction for putting African American men behind bars even if they have no crimes. Burge would often torture suspects, especially the blacks, of course, and force them to confess to crimes they never committed. With the way he was so committed to using cruel torture means, you'd think this guy was once a slave master. In fact, if you were to walk into an interrogation room and see Jon Burge, you shouldn't expect to be treated nicely. Instead, you should expect Burge and his team of torturers to suffocate you, electrocute your genitals and place burning objects on your body, all just to make sure you confess to crimes you never committed. But eventually his sins caught up with him, and he was found guilty of torturing over 100 African American men between 1972 and 1991. In 2010, he was sentenced to only 4 years in prison on perjury charges. Upon his conviction, the state of Chicago paid a $5.5 million compensation fund to all his victims for the pains they suffered and the wrongful sentencing they endured. Manuel Pardo. Pardo was a well-decorated naval officer, but after he left and joined the police, he slowly began to grow an unhealthy obsession about Hitler and committing murder sprees. And of course, he brought his fantasies to reality. In just 3 months, he killed 6 men and 3 women in a series of robberies and drug deals. But this was not all of his crimes. Manuel Pardo, who was nicknamed Manny, also committed crimes in falsifying tickets and expressing brutality towards men. And this proved to the police force that he was not fit to serve and protect. Eventually, due to his prior offenses and extreme racial views, he was immediately considered a suspect in the murders. Further investigations into his apartment and other belongings revealed that Pardo had in his possession a collection of Nazi memorabilia, along with pictures and newspaper clippings of the deceased victims. All the murder cases pointed to him. He admitted that he purposely killed his victims and was convicted of 8 counts of first-degree murder. On April 20th, 1988, he was sentenced to death, but it wasn't until December 2012 that he was finally executed by lethal injection in a Florida prison. Christopher Jordan Dorner. Jordan Dorner's story is like one acted out of an American action film. Jordan was a Navy-trained shooter who had very serious anger issues, and you won't guess what he did after he was kicked off the force for making false accusations and accusations. If you said murder, then you guessed it right. In fact, his red-hot hate and anger led him to take on a revenge attack which left 4 people dead, including 2 police officers. As if that wasn't enough, he used his Facebook page to openly discuss and detail his plans for the attacks, and this eventually became his manifesto, which authorities used to uncover hidden threats to his victims prior to the attack. This is where the story gets even more chilling. Upon his killings, in February 2013, a nationwide manhunt was declared for him. It was named as one of the largest manhunts in US history, spanning across 2 countries, US and Mexico. Jordan Dorner ran, but was eventually caught up in a standoff with the police, and it wasn't long before he died as a result of a self-inflicted wound to the head during this standoff. Ronald Glen West. You would expect a police officer to protect, guide and secure lives, but no, not Ronald Glen West. This man was everything but a police officer. Even though he wore the uniform and served in the Toronto Police Department. Although on the outside he appeared to be responsible, he hid many terrible secrets that of course did not stay hidden for too long. During his time in service as a police officer, Glen West showed violent tendencies and sexual motives towards women. Then his sins slowly began to catch up with him. First, in 1995, he was arrested after a string of agitated robberies and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. When the police searched his home for more evidence connected to other crimes, They found nothing but a spotless home void of nothing criminally implicating. But someone else saw something that the police could not see. Glen West's next tenant reported something very shocking to the police after they discovered pictures of naked women, stolen jewelry and the registration for a .22 caliber handgun, all hidden in the walls. The police, this time, paid an even closer look and discovered that the gun in Glen's possession was the same weapon used to kill 2 housewives in their homes in 1970. The police compared the collection of evidence and they were able to indicate and establish that Glen West committed the murders. Surprisingly, he did not hesitate, but pled guilty to both counts of murder and served 2 consecutive life sentences, including the robbery charges. What do you think of some of these bad cops, and which story shocked you the most? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to us to stay informed on our newest videos.